Good morning, 4330 students. This is your Week 3 instructional video for how to complete your assignments in the Week 3 folder. These online activities are designed to help you put critical thinking questions into your lessons, as well as to develop an informal assessment that goes along with those content objectives you worked last week or the critical thinking questions you're going to be writing this week. Over my 14 years in education, being an educator myself, as well as working with both new and veteran teachers, I've come to realize that both new and veteran teachers tell me that one of the most challenging tasks they face when creating a lesson plan is writing quality, critical thinking questions, especially when you're teaching a lesson over content that you've never taught before, or maybe content that you're not super comfortable with teaching yet. As new teachers, or when we're teaching new content, we have a tendency to ask close-ended or surface-level questions throughout the entire lesson. Some of those questions might be things like, who wrote The Grapes of Wrath? Or what types of lines do you see in this painting? Or name 2 causes of the American Revolution. Or one that is our go-to happens to be, does everybody understand? And your students will happily nod yes so that you can continue the lesson. Critical thinking questions, though, they serve as an informal assessment, and if you use them throughout the entire lesson, you can check for understanding along the way and curb any misunderstandings immediately rather than waiting until it's time to take a quiz or a test and your students' understandings are already formed. So forming those open-ended, higher-order thinking questions, that can be kind of difficult to do on the fly. So in this course, I'm going to have you write those questions into your lessons so that you get a lot of practice making those questions and you get to develop the language you need to ask those critical thinking questions. When it comes time to write lessons, you're not just going to write ask questions, you're going to put the actual question in there. So in addition to being able to create those questions, I want you to watch what it looks like in a classroom when students are asked those questions and then they have to respond to those questions. So instead of me just giving you a list of sentence stems and saying make up these questions, I have a little YouTube video that I want you to watch of teachers actually asking critical thinking questions in the classroom. So for one of your online assignments this week, you're going to be making observations and answering questions about critical thinking questions in the classroom. And I have a YouTube link in the Blackboard folder for you to click on. Then you're going to write 5 critical thinking questions with your lesson plan group. These can be questions that you plug in to the lesson plans that you're going to be making later, or you can alter them to fit a new set of TEKS that you're working on. Individually, you are also going to create an informal assessment connected to a TEK from your chosen content area. So that can be from the TEKS you've already looked at last week for writing content objectives or this week for writing critical thinking questions. So let me show you where to access the materials you will need to complete this week's assignments. If you go under the Lessons tab in your Blackboard course, you will see that on Monday we're talking about effective practices in the classroom, and if you go down to Session B, the online session, you'll see the YouTube link for the video that you need to watch to complete this next assignment. The video is titled Classroom Questioning Strategies. You're also going to need the template, which is available inside the Week 3 folder. If you click on the title of the folder and you scroll down to the red Putting Critical Thinking Questions in Your Lesson, you'll see that the template where your group is going to answer the questions is right here. So if you click on that, it will download the file and you'll want to enable editing on the file to be able to type in here. Since you guys have very different schedules and you're likely going to be working on this asynchronously, which means not at the same time, I highly recommend using a cloud drive like office.com. You're going to go sign in and then upload the assignment file that you just downloaded. If you click the share button in the top right hand corner, you can type in your group members' buff emails and share the file with them, and you can find those emails in the Blackboard course module, or if you send them a message in Blackboard, you can ask them. So now that whenever someone works on the file in office.com, it's going to save it automatically and you can see everybody's updates instead of having to pass the same file around. So everybody in the group needs to watch the video Classroom Questioning Strategies. Before you begin answering the questions, go ahead and delegate who is responsible for answering each of the questions, or if you all want to add a little bit to each of the questions. When you're done watching the video, you're going to write your 5 critical thinking questions in your template and then upload the finished template to the Dropbox. Only one member of the group needs to upload it, and then it will populate to other group members' Dropboxes. Please delegate the person who needs to upload it, as well as the time you want them to upload it, and then have them send you a notification that it did go through and it is uploaded, so that at 8:30 in the morning you're not saying, my group member forgot to submit. You guys are all responsible for keeping each other on task. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this template looks like. It has 5 different questions about the videos. Those are pretty self-explanatory. The 6th question is those 5 critical thinking questions that I want you to write. And I've created a chart with an example for Theater 1 classes. You'll notice we're writing one for Bloom's level remember, understand, apply, analyze, and then I put evaluate and create together. So I have a sample here for you to see. And then if you scroll down, you'll see that your group has a table where you guys can enter your responses. The last thing that I want to talk about in this instructional video for week 3 is what you're going to do to create an informal assessment. So each one of you individually is going to create an informal assessment that could go with either the content objectives you wrote last week or the critical thinking questions you came up with this week. So let's look at some examples of what students have done in the past. They love exit tickets because they're familiar with that strategy. So this one was from Pete. Another set of students used Microsoft Paint. This is also an exit ticket. This one is from Art. They took an image off of the internet and then plugged it into Word. They want the students to fill in things like the complementary colors, the primary colors on the color wheel. The students would be doing this during class after a lecture on that content. So here's an example of one that I made. This is a photo circle activity, and you can see that I have my critical thinking questions. Who is in the photo? What is the photo about? When was the photo taken? Where was the photo taken? So the informal assessment that you can create can be something you use at the beginning of class, in the middle class, or at the end of class. I've added some additional resources for you inside the week 3 folder. If you scroll down to all of this stuff in blue, there's assessments for the math classroom, but those can be easily modified for any content area. There's strategy cards, there's different PowerPoint, there's critical thinking questions stems, writing across the curriculum strategies, and then if you click inside this graphics and clip art for informal assessment design, you'll see that I put some like borders and some frames in there if you want to make something kind of cute. PowerPoint is the best tool to use when you're designing like teachers pay teachers style kind of stuff because it's easier to layer than it is in Word. 3 assignments, 1 effective teaching quiz. 1 is your individual informal assessment creation, and the other one you're doing as a group. That's the critical thinking questions and then answering those other 5 questions from the video. See you guys next week.